There's a moment that changes everything. A moment when the person who has given and given and given finally looks in the mirror and says, "Enough." And what Carl Jung discovered about this exact moment will completely shift how you understand personal transformation. Stay with me because this gets powerful. You see, Carl Jung spent his entire career studying what he called the process of individuation, but he noticed something fascinating about people with high emotional sensitivity, something that most psychologists completely missed. According to Jung's research, empaths operate in a state of what he termed chronic self-sacrifice. They absorb other people's pain, they fix other people's problems, they dim their own light so others can shine. But Jung discovered that this pattern isn't sustainable. And when it breaks, something extraordinary happens. Here's what Jung understood that will blow your mind. The empath who finally chooses themselves doesn't become selfish. They become what Jung called psychologically sovereign. This is crucial, because there's a massive difference between these two states, and understanding it changes everything. Carl Jung said that the psyche always seeks balance. He called this the principle of enantiodromia, the tendency for things to swing to their opposite when pushed too far. The empath who has been endlessly giving will eventually swing towards self-preservation, not out of cruelty but out of survival. And this is where the transformation becomes unstoppable. According to Jung's theory of the shadow, we all carry repressed aspects of ourselves. For empaths, their shadow often contains their capacity for saying no, for prioritizing themselves, for walking away from people who drain them. But here's what's absolutely fascinating. When an empath finally integrates this shadow, they don't lose their empathy. They gain discernment. Listen carefully to what happens next. Carl Jung discovered that the most powerful individuals are those who have faced what he called the dark night of the soul and emerged transformed. For the empath, this dark night comes when they realize that their endless giving has been feeding the wrong people, that their compassion has been weaponized against them, that their sensitivity has been treated as weakness. This realization is what Jung termed a psychic crisis, and it's absolutely necessary for growth. The empath who chooses themselves goes through what Jung called the process of differentiation. They begin to separate their feelings from other people's feelings, their needs from other people's expectations, their truth from other people's narratives. This isn't easy. In fact, Jung said it's one of the most difficult psychological tasks a person can undertake. But here's where it gets revolutionary. According to Carl Jung, when someone reclaims their energy, they don't just change themselves. They change every dynamic around them. The people who benefited from their endless giving suddenly have to face their own emptiness. The manipulators who fed off their compassion suddenly find themselves starving. The narcissists who controlled them through guilt suddenly lose all their power. Jung called this the withdrawal of projections, and it's devastating to those who relied on the empath's self-abandonment. The empath who finally chooses themselves stops explaining. They stop defending. They stop trying to make people understand why they deserve basic respect. They reach what Jung called psychological autonomy, the ability to validate themselves without needing external approval. And this is where everything shifts permanently. Carl Jung observed that true transformation isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, firm, and absolute. The empath doesn't announce their boundaries with fanfare. They simply enforce them. They don't argue about their worth. They just start acting like someone who knows it. They don't beg for reciprocity. They just stop giving where it's not returned. Jung said that this kind of quiet power is the most threatening thing to people who thrive on chaos, because you can't manipulate someone who no longer needs your approval. You can't guilt someone who has stopped abandoning themselves to please you. You can't control someone who has finally chosen their own peace over your comfort. Here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. The empath who chooses themselves goes through what he called the integration of opposites. They learn to hold both compassion and boundaries, both understanding and detachment, both forgiveness and firm closure. This isn't contradiction. It's what Jung termed the transcendent function, the ability to hold paradox without breaking. They become gentle with those who deserve it and unmovable with those who don't. According to Carl Jung, the final stage of individuation is when someone becomes whole within themselves. The awakened empath embodies this perfectly. They no longer need toxic people to feel needed. They no longer need chaos to feel alive. They no longer need to fix broken people to feel valuable. They've learned what Jung called the art of conscious relationship, engaging only where there's mutual respect, genuine care, and authentic reciprocity. And here's the moment that makes them absolutely untouchable. Carl Jung said that when someone has integrated their shadow, embraced their power and chosen themselves, they become what he termed complete unto themselves. The empath who reaches this state doesn't fear abandonment because they've learned to be their own safe place. They don't fear loneliness because they've discovered their excellent company. They've transformed from someone who pours their light into black holes disguised as people, into someone who carefully guards their energy and shares it only where it's honored. This is the psychology of the empath who finally chooses themselves. And according to Carl Jung's lifetime of research, it's the most powerful transformation a human being can undergo. Because they don't just survive, they transcend. They don't just heal, they become whole. They don't just set boundaries, they become their own sanctuary. And once you witness this transformation, you'll never underestimate the quiet power of someone who has learned that choosing themselves isn't selfish. It's sacred.